Good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully good morning, Dwight. Good afternoon to everybody else. Nice to have you on board today. Today is November 2nd, so we're almost to the end of the year. Can't wait for the end of the year. Today we got some guy named Dennis Hammon with no D. He got a D on his first name, but not his last name. Here to talk a little bit about image excellence images and kind of some of the hints to judges are looking for and some of the things he's done to make his images better. So Dennis, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, thank you. I look at all these pictures out here and I see Tim out there. I go, man, I can't lie anymore about stuff. Tim's out there.
That's why I'm here. Just keep you honest.
Well, I got a redhead that's on here that's going to do that for me. Thank you very much.
Well, she can hit you. I can just.
I missed what I'm doing. Just that I'm doing something.
You're keeping me honest.
No.
She can't even do that.
Okay. So, I grabbed a couple of things here and, talk about loan images and what we can do in Photoshop, different things here. But, first thing I did, I just got back from Yellowstone. I saw a Sasquatch out there and,
Does he wear a blue hat?
Yeah, I was actually going to be mean to him and change it to a Braves hat, but we watched 2 Braves games while I was out there. So we're still Braves fans. But, one thing I think people don't realize is Michael and us, we had a lot of conversation driving because we just went to Yellowstone for a couple of days. And I think the big thing is go out and practice and do stuff here. And, PPA has, kept us going and they give us these list of things to look at. And I use these every day for my portraits and everything going on. And for me, and I think Tim will probably agree with me, technical excellence is one of the biggest things for me. I like things sharp and in focus and composed well. So, if you haven't got this screen, do a screen capture so you have it here. But these are on my computers or my bags. I have them all memorized, but it's nice to have them in front of you so when you're looking around. But these are things that we're looking for as a judge.
Dennis,
and yes.
I see a whole bunch of stuff, and then the 12 elements is really small.
Okay, I'm going to have to reshare. Okay,
how do you do a screenshot on the Apple?
Apple's Command-Shift-4, and then you drag your cursor.
Command-Shift-4?
Command-Shift-4.
Okay, can you see the 12 elements now?
Yes.
Okay, I apologize. We just need to go back so we can show off the Sasquatch in case you didn't see him. So, this is important for us as we go through because people say, what makes a difference between a loan print and a normal print? And I think Tim would agree with me a lot of it. We have the 12 elements, but my feeling a lot of time I'm probably going to step in the puddle here, but I think a lot of times it's the judges on the panel and how it impacts them and how they feel about that image a lot. Tim, do you agree?
Yeah, and every panel is different. And also the makeup of a panel can have a big influence on that too, but they follow the 12 elements. And you don't have to have every element there, but they use that as a guide.
They use it as a guide, and I firmly believe a lot of judges they judge by experience a lot in that field. So now this isn't going to be a show and tell. I'm just going to explain a couple things, and I got Cheri and Dwight going to show off some images, and if anybody else has some loan images they want to bring up and show us and us talk about real fast. But this is kind of cool that PPA started doing this. Is one of my loan images this year. That PPA is doing so you can remember your image with the little corners up here and know what they are and your name on it. So you can go on your PPA site, and if you got images merited or not merited, or the merited images or loans will have the corners on there. So you can go in and snag those and help you remember. I got to be honest, I went back 7, 8 years and I can't even remember some of the images I've done. And I'm sure Tim's the same way. Time you enter PPA and enter California or Idaho and ASP and everything, I'm going like, what the hey did I enter?
Did I enter that?
Why did I enter that?
Why?
So this is kind of cool. But this is a shot that I did on one of our coach trips this year into Yellowstone. And this is just a lot of fun. And a lot of the times I think the judge is looking for the impact something new, something different, maybe something they haven't seen before, but also how it affects them visually, so they can take visual journeys through the images as they do it. I did the matting presentation, like some of the stuff that Cheri and I work on a lot, but that shouldn't, in my opinion, determine if it's a lone image or not, because we've seen images without mats go lone, but it certainly can help corral the viewer's eyes or the judge's eyes and keep him in where you need to be. So if anybody's got questions as we're going along to anybody, please ask. Another one this year that I was lucky getting, I was with Cheri and some people from Ken and Jackson, and just one of those mornings where the light just zips out there and grabs you and you grab it. But I use a lot of fine art type matting, so it's not distracting from anything. I just think it just really presents itself well. And the thing is like I got leading lines up to the central point. I got leading lines from the clouds coming down. So it's little things that grab the judges. And when an image comes up, and I know we're not supposed to say things, but when you hear a judge go, ooh, you might have got their attention, right, Tim?
You can't, sometimes you can't help it. The image will have such a strong impact. You have a visceral reaction, and
we're human, and that's the thing we have to attempt, that we're all humans here. And sometimes that just happens, but when you hear that, you pretty much know that you might have something there. So this is one from and I just took Michael here just this weekend. This is one, it's not the name of the falls, but it's actually called Firehole Falls, but I just wanted the graphics. And it was interesting, one of the judges was commenting on, well, I wish that tree wasn't there. And I'm thinking in the background, the Forest Service might really freak out if I went in there and tried to get that tree out. And sometimes they reach out and they are looking for things to take down, and they don't know what to do. But it's a matter, I think, when the judges are looking at things, they look at the impact, and I use the framing of the trees, the steam coming down, and all the steam, the light coming down through the water. So it's all about creating that visual experience for the judges when they're looking at it.
Say, Dennis, why did you go black and white though?
Why not?
Well, I understand. Yeah, I understand that, but the color's got to be something.
Well, the color is nice. I'll know that next year. No, I'm kidding. I won't do that. But Tim's laughing. I taught black and white at a university. I love black and white, and the color is nice. But when I kicked it to black and white, for me, it kicked it up a notch. It really brought up. And it's interesting, when I do critiques, I know I've talked to Dwight and Tim about this as well. When I do critiques, unfortunately I won't let's do it in Photoshop anymore, but I would actually show the makers what would happen if you did this in black and white versus color. And now you don't have all the, like that dead tree and the pine beetles got that red, and this is a different color. Now you have one tone, several tones of black and white, but you don't have to have your eyes can visually be attracted right to the center point of the falls, which if you notice, the title is in the image, falls. And so the judges have nothing to worry about, but they're looking at instead of saying dead tree at falls, then they would really be confused maybe. So you want to make sure that you use your titles effectively, again, to communicate. Yes. Don't you feel, Tim, that's one of the things that challenges when we get titles, we don't know what the hell they're saying?
Well, yeah, sometimes the titles are more of a distraction than helping the image.
Yeah.
Dennis,
yes.
Great images. I noticed that your use of border is in white. Is that best as opposed to black or a darker?
Well, thanks, Chris, for asking. I talked about, we've done presentations on the fine art and the matting presentation. I do have a couple in here with black, but for a lot of the presentations, I just like the non-distracting fine art piece. And like Cheri brings it up, you go to a museum and what do you see? You see white matting around fine art pieces. So I'm really trying to emulate that. I know some judges feel like, oh, it's got white, but then you start looking at it, what you going to take away from? I mean, so that's just my opinion, Chris. And I hope that explains it.
That's great.
Cheri, do you have anything you want to add?
No, well, kinda. A lot depends on the image itself, whether you go black, white, a color, or a lighter tone or a darker tone. And experience will help you make that decision. I have a whole program based on presentation and what works with what and what doesn't work with what. And it's a lot of it does have to do with the image and where you want the viewer to look. So a lot of times if you use the wrong presentation, your eye is going to be drawn to the edge of the image and where it's conflicting with the image and back and forth between the two. So you want a presentation that you don't really want to notice the presentation, if that makes sense.
And if the technical part of it is, I use Nick Silverflex 2 for my imagery to convert it. Yes, I could do this in black and white in Photoshop and change all levels and curves and play all stuff, but I prefer to use Nick but I customize it to myself, even though I find it and I'm always adjusting those. So this one, it almost looked like it's upside down. But when I saw this image, it was actually emerging out of mist and fog. And you kind of see still a little bit coming there. But to me, the title of this image was called Fallen Comrade. And it just, to me, was the graphicness. Nature produces graphics that we can't even duplicate sometimes. And so this to me was a very graphic piece, and that's what I enjoyed. And again, I saw this in black and white. When I shot this image, even though the back of my screen said color, it's still black and white. And I know Tim shot with me and Michael shot with me before too, but a lot of times I'll just convert real quick in the back of my Canon to monochrome so I can get a visual sense of what I'm doing, because it actually tells me when I'm going through editing, that was my concept. At that second I shot that image, and when I see that black and white, because I shoot RAW and JPEG, it just reminds me what my concept and idea was. So again, just a fine line, black and white, and the fine art matte presentation. Let's see if I can blow this up here. We were actually just cruising to Jackson. In fact, Cheri was asleep. It was like 6 in the morning on the New Year's Day. And I just happened to get out there and see this fog rising out there and grab the shot. But this time I actually used a double line on the presentation. This was called Emerging from the Fog. There again, trying to get the title so the judges work. They go, why is it centered? Why is it white and the black? But I try to get to Emerging the Fog because that's all there was. And in the 2-3 minutes that I watched this, I mean, that whole scene just disappeared because of the fog rising and moving. So I had to put in a second line here because the problem is if I had of this bottom part would have disappeared, then we would have had this other tonality up in here and the judges would have been confused. So you have to adjust yourself and figure out, and Cheri talked about, deciding what's going to be best for colors and tones and lines. And I use very thin lines. There again, I know Dwight and Tim have probably seen the images. They're like 22 strokes wide around an image. It's like, hello, what were you thinking? And so I try to use minute, like 3-4 pixels on my images.
Well, that also depends on what your file size too.
Yes, that's true. Thank you, Cheri.
Hey, Dennis, do you mind answering a question in between, or you want to?
No, anytime. Let's do it as we're going.
So you mentioned title. I'm really curious if you could just spend, a couple of minutes. How important is the title, and what do judges really look for the title? Should the title tell it all, or should it be a little bit more mysterious or untitled? What do you think?
Okay, here's my thoughts, and I want Dwight and Tim to jump in. My thoughts is that the title should be quick, concise, and to the point, not making you trying to wonder what it is, because people put these French terms and all these different stuff there, and they put words in there that when judges are turning to each other, what does that mean? We're supposed to judge the image, but as judges, we're people and we still want to know the whole story behind the image. That's what part of the storytelling is. But if somebody puts up something that detracts us from visiting the image with full intent, seeing the image, to me, that becomes a distraction at that point and isn't going to help it, in my point. Tim?
Well, I mean, for me, the title is sort of a kind of a guide as to what's to come. And if the title is completely off the mark as far as the image is concerned, the judge is going to lose that initial impact. They're going to go, what did you say? The image has come up and you've lost that, that first hit. So really the titles are really important as far as giving the judge an indication of what's to come, what's coming.
So
And
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
A lot of times if kind of like along the same lines that Tim just mentioned, if the judge hears a title and they don't get it or they don't understand it, they're going to be thinking more about what that title has to do with the image than enjoying your image. So you kind of take them on a different path if it's a confusing title.
And the person reading the title has to be able to pronounce the words.
Oh,
and if
God.
it's in some funky language or the scientific name of a plant, it's a challenge.
That
Or
drives me nuts.
a movie title that a judge hasn't seen, or a series title, or anything that has to do with TV or movies. If the judge hasn't seen the movie or the TV show or the series, it's going to be lost on them.
We don't have too much of a problem lately, but when the movie Field of Dreams hit, every other print we were judging was Field of Dreams. And then here's what happens. You hear the title and your initial reaction in your mind is, oh, not another one. You've completely lost, again, the impact of that image when it comes up. So, you got to be very thoughtful when it comes, keep them simple, but at the same time, they've got to be part of that image.
And the same thing goes with the Somewhere in Time, The Eyes Have It,
Pretty in pink.
just stuff like that that's been used and abused over the years.
But people new to image comp don't know that those have been used and abused. So it's
Right.
hard for them.
Anthony, are you trying to say something? You're on mute. Anthony, you're muted.
He's still muted.
how's that better?
Actually, we liked you better a minute ago. No,
Let's go back to mute.
Okay, you had a question?
So yeah, my question is though, when the print comes up, do you start judging, when you see the photograph, I get that part, but do you start judging on the name and then start looking for the image, or do you look for the image to qualify the name?
Yes and yes. I mean, here's the thing, and Cindy, I hope I answered your question, but when the title
You did. Thank you, everybody.
the title is read and the image is turned on the screen or it pops up. So hopefully you've achieved. I said something wrong, but if the image comes up, so the thing is, hopefully you've achieved a couple things. You've given an auditory presentation of your title with a good title and something that is descriptive. You've used a good presentation in a sense to corral the viewer's eye or the judge's eye within the scene, and then the scene is presented in such a way that then the maker can take a visual journey, enjoy the image, and give it an appropriate score. Hopefully all three of those things are present.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, this is another one that it kind of defies a lot of the composition factors because of it's bottom weighted, but the clouds are top weighted. And it's one of those images that the title of this was called Man Harnessing Mother Nature. And I remember I was actually on the panel when this came up and I had to recuse myself, and then to listen to all the judges fight about it. And it's like, oh my God, people, I just wish you would have really, I'm sitting there myself going, I wish you could have really been there and felt electricity in the air and feeling it. And sometimes judges understand it and sometimes they don't. And that's why I'm trying to put those titles in there to help the judges understand and actually feel the emotion in the image.
Dennis,
Yes.
what criteria do you use yourself for vignetting?
Okay, if I heard you right, what criteria do I use for vignetting?
Correct.
I use very little vignetting, or if I do what you call vignetting, I will tone down edges to effectively blend into the center, but myself, I do not prefer to see that keyhole or darken edges around anything. So I prefer, if I'm toning things down, to make sure it's blended in effectively. And I know Tim and Dwight have both seen these where there's such a keyhole looks like you're shooting a hole through a hole to get to them. So I guess it's just a matter of the appropriateness of the skill level you have to bring that toning down. I hope that answered your question, Roger.
Yeah, yeah.
Tim, how do you feel?
I use them very sparsely. The only time I would even do it is if, for whatever reason, I've got light spots at the top, not too much at the bottom, but if I have, for whatever reason, the corners are light, I might use it. But I try not to use them at all.
Yeah, it's just a matter of toning it down. If you can see it, in my opinion, it's too far.
A really
But-
good tip to see if it's there, because a lot of times our images, we can't can't see the forest for the trees kind of a thing. When you're in Photoshop or whatever, you retouch and reduce your image to pretty small on your monitor. And then that's when you can really see the keyhole happening, because you remove details and recognizable features of the image, and you can really see the keyhole happening. And that's a kind of a good tip to see if you've got that going on.
And also turn upside down, same thing. Okay, this was just, I was at a church and actually saw this image, and I apologize, I just grabbed a screen capture. I thought it's called Convergence, and I just grabbed this image from the top of a church when I was shooting a wedding. But it just, again, the lines, the tones, the design, and the texture of it. And it's interesting enough that we had a member in our state, he saw this, he knew what church was. So the very next year, he went and recaptured that same thing, thinking he would get a loan as well. He didn't.
Same crop, same.
Yeah,
everything.
it was like he took the book and laid the template on top of it. And it's like, I hopefully people understand that when you look at the loan books, the marathon books and things, they're meant for inspiration. And it just feels like some people are in desperation to copy. But this was actually several of these have been in my ASP thesis, and this folio, and this was in my ASP folio, and it was just called Star Gear, and I think I actually changed the name to Spider Gear. But it's just one of the kind of a commercial type image. So I tried to show different things I was doing, but somebody goes, "Why black and white?" But the color had a lot of rust and different colors and things, and from weather and stuff. And the black and white, when I converted to black and white, I had a chill run through my body when I saw that. And I put that border on there. I put a little wider border on it this time, because some of them I've had really thin borders, and some I've had wider borders or stroke lines. And so it just depends on the kind of design you wanted. And I wanted to use the white as part of the design in this image. So it's just a matter of playing with them. And if I can use the term, feeling the image and feeling the force and feeling the image when you're putting these together.
Did you use Nick's software on that one again?
Yeah, that's Nick Silverfx 2, yes.
Okay.
Actually, I think that's still the old one, Silverfx 1, before they changed it, because I've been with them a long time. We just visited this place this weekend, and this was just Steps Through the Ages, and this was like last year alone. And again,
A couple years ago.
yeah, I can't remember, Cheri, anymore. It's terrible to think that. So yeah, it's just a matter of lots of times I use the white coming out of the corners, bringing up the tension there, the clouds bringing there. And so it's just a matter of really trying to keep the attention and give the judges something hopefully they haven't seen before.
Dennis,
Yes.
you got a real pastel look on that. Is that what you saw, or is that what you fixed?
No, basically that's pretty much how I saw it. That pastel look is early morning, and that's all the steam and mist in the air, the environment.
Okay.
And those who've been there know kind of what it's like. There's just a lot of steam coming off in just that early morning. And I shot this pretty much. Michael, you were there just this weekend. Does this look kind of like what it looked like?
Not as much white there now. It's got more color to it.
Yeah.
When there's water, when there's the hot water coming out of it, there's lots of colors because of the heat loving bacteria. And this was during a dry period.
Where is that?
This is Mammoth Hot Springs in Yellowstone.
Ah,
But, I've been there probably 1,000 times, literally, and every time I go there, it's different. It's just different. So, this was when I did in Yosemite at our workshop, Roger, when I did that workshop down there. This actually I shot the day before when I found the place. But there again, you see the tonalities in the shot, but I composed it so the water come out here and the whole scene come out of the top, and I had the mist and the fog coming out there. And I really wanted to create a matted look with my presentation with this. And it's just a matter of giving the presentation and the composition is so many images can be improved by composition, but I just felt with this water meandering through, teasing through the trees and back up was enough composition to make it work.
And with that particular matte, you'll notice it's not a bright white matte, it's an off-white, so it doesn't overpower.
Well, yeah, thank you for noticing that, because I actually took the white, grabbed this color in here and just blended it out so it wasn't so stark white, and then blended that out because I tried the bold white and it was nice, but I just felt like it was a lot stronger when I took one of the tones of the white and just brought it back down. So good catch there, Michael.
and also a point on having a judge comment on your image when they don't really know what they're looking at, and hoping and praying there's somebody on the panel who does. And one of the judges didn't understand why the top part of the image and the top part of the trees at the top of the image were so soft and less in focus like the bottom part of the image. And that's why they gave it a low score initially. And then there was someone on the panel that said, well, that's a waterfall, and waterfall has lots of mist. And luckily that person swayed the opinion of the one that didn't understand what it was. So that plays a big part in your score too.
Yeah, a lot of times you want to have a judge that can work in your favor, that can, that can explain or educate the other judges that what's happening. Because there are times that I see an image and I'm not familiar, and I'm hoping somebody on the panel would kind of teach me what I should be looking at, and then I take the information and then I'll adjust accordingly. And you kind of hope that there is a judge that's working in your favor on that panel.
And I think Tim done JC so much, and I think he'll expand on more. But it's just nice to have a panel that works together and listens and works and listens to the other panelists.
As a jury chairman, I try not to get involved in every image, or I will not do it. But every once in a while, something will come up, and either the judges missed it or they don't see it the same way. And so it's really necessary for somebody on that panel, whether it be the jury chairman or the panels, to challenge it so that that point can be brought out, because we certainly want to give all the benefit to the maker that we can. And to let that go is really not being fair.
Yeah, I know one thing is that a lot of people don't think JC should make comments or talks. I've seen a lot of panels about that. And, like Tim, I've JC'd a lot, not as much as him, but my approach is I try to let them fight it out. And then as the dad, I have to kind of help, control them and bring them back into the realm before they need to be. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. And this one came through, and it was like that one time I heard a ooh, and people were talking, and this is a challenge I have sometimes. And Tim, I'm not trying to step on toes when judges assume things and they go, oh, that's been painted. They've done painted thing on the background. They've done this. And this is almost a straight image, and I could show the straight shot. I took out a lone duck over here that I didn't like the way the ripple was, but basically that's a straight image, the way it looked when I captured it. And, but sometimes judges take it upon themselves to try to assume things. And as people who are entering things, and we have to kind of accept that things like that happen, even though I don't like it, because judges assume things and they may not understand the technique and the procedure, but eventually, hopefully, using the 12 elements and somebody on the panel will help guide that. And this is one of the few times that I've used a color stroke on my image like this. I grabbed the color like up in the trees and double stroke this and made this out here, so it'd keep the continuity of the sorry about that. Color and tonality is the image. Any questions?
It looks more like Cheri's work than yours.
I didn't touch it.
I was on a guy trip with this, and she wasn't even around.
Will you
And I do.
explain- Oh, sorry.
I can go back. I explained what.
Will you explain what you mean by it keeps the tone of the picture? Say you'd only used one. I mean, I like it with two, but what are you saying that it does if you use
Okay.
two rather than just one?
Well, okay. See, I grabbed like I think I grabbed like one of these lighter tones in here, and so I used the same tone for.
Right.
And I actually remember what the numbers were, so I made sure I got the great one. Because if I would have grabbed, say, I just in here and grabbed like a blue over here, which we've seen, we have seen people. I've seen one time that had 5 different color stroke lines around it, and it's like, OMG, why? Just because we can doesn't mean we should.
That's the first thing the judges saw were all the colors in the presentation. Now,
I
they
think-
missed the image.
I think you and I are on the same panel together on that particular one.
I think so.
I think they had like squares and crisscrosses on the bottom too, if I remember right.
Ridiculous.
And it's like, so it scored down. But when I say same tones, you can see where I grabbed the color tones out there, so they're both the same. So I try to keep the judge's eyes within the image. Oh, damn it. Sorry. With the same tone and color. Did that answer your question, Lisa?
Yeah, no, because I'm not used to the 2 stroke. So I actually like it. So it gives me an idea. So I wasn't necessarily questioning using 2 different colors, but I thought you were commenting on why you choose 2 stroke line, 2 separate ones. Rather
Well-
In this image,
works.
because the predominant color in this image is that yellow, it just keeps it consistent.
And if you look at, is just lean your chair back, it almost looks like a cut mat with a yellow cut mat border on the inside. And I kind of made it that way. So, I'm trying to, and I think that's what helped grab the judge's attention is the presentation. And just kind of finishing up here, I says, because I do portraits, and I enter portraits a lot. I got my master's all on portraits. Now I'm kind of playing. But so I just captured this portrait of this young man, this gentleman, but he did this for his kids. And here's the thing that's so important about our lives and our business when we do these things. This man asked me to do his portraits, and he got them to his kids. And it was like, about a month later, he didn't show up. He was a retired cameraman for the local TV station, retired, then went to work at Walmart, Sam's. He didn't show up to work for a day, and they got worried, and they found him passed away at home. And so this is what's so important about us taking every session we do and everything we do with such energy that we never know, maybe and this was the last portrait he ever had in his life. And that was his dad's sailor hat and his dad's sweater. But that importantly was his dad's hat, because he was some kind of naval guy. And that was important to him, and he gave that to his kids. But again, as soon as I shot this shot, I turned to black and white in the back of my camera. I knew what I was going to do. I knew what the image was and where I had to go with that. But again, if you notice, it's this in a dark line. I used a simple gray. I just grabbed a gray. I grabbed one of here, and I just moved my slider. So just a gray. So I felt like if it would have been a dark black, it would have been too contrasty around him. So I wanted to keep that lighter tones all around him. This is actually one of the top 3 Kodak awards last year they did Kodak. So it made me happy.
Did you use the 3 pixel on the line?
Sorry, did I what?
3 pixel on when you did the border line there, was it 3 pixel size, or is that just?
Anthony, it's probably 3 or 4. It's probably what it was. It depends on, like Cheri said, the size of your files. And
Yeah,
so
3 pixel on a really big file is going to be a
small.
tiny, real thin line. The smaller it is, 3 pixel is going to look bigger.
Okay.
So it just depends on the image.
Well, the key to it is make sure you crop it down to where we want to be and then start adding it on. But it's just a matter of, like I say, here again, it works with portraits as well. And to me, this is a fine art portrait that captured with that white mat. And there again, this is something a little different. Somebody else, I always do white. Well, this was from Yosemite. I thought, okay, I'm going to try something different. So I just created that black inverse mat. Like, I think we've done that program and showed you guys how to do this. And so I just did the inverse mat instead of the white. I went to the charcoal gray
It's a
that's in the color.
Cut mat.
It looks like a cut mat,
Not an inverse map.
inverse it, but it looked like I cut matte, but I did it with black instead of white, and it just gives a different feel and tension. It's interesting. I had a judge come after me afterwards after they scored, and they go, "Well, that didn't look like your style." Well, I don't know if that's good or bad, but if you start developing a style so everybody starts to recognize your image every time, then I think sometimes that is a deterrent of the judges being effective. But that's just my opinion. And there again, just finding simple things, the simple lines, the white lines. I know this has got a little tiny black line separating it around inside here, and then another black one. But again, this is my style. This works for me, my style. And each one of you are going to have to come up and kind of design your own little look. So that kind of sets all my images. Anybody have any questions? And then we can go to Dwight. Anybody got any questions about anything or comments?
Anything? Challenges with me is that when downloading the image to on an electronic file, it's been my biggest challenge because it changes at some level. I don't know what the pixel ratio is and what's safe to download. Last time I downloaded an image, I got basically picked apart at BPA because they thought there was an intrusive image, but not knowing that when I downloaded everything, the pixel changed on me.
Do you mean when you upload to PPA
I'm sorry,
for the
upload.
comp?
Yeah, upload. I'm sorry.
There are step-by-step instructions on how to make sure that's correct.
I thought, but apparently I got destroyed. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think if somebody's got a question, and I know as a juror, I can ask Tim, could he clarify something for me, or flag it? But if it's something like that, and that's what I'd call user error. I mean, we can only judge what's in front of us.
Yep.
So anyway, I'm going to stop sharing. And Mr. Dwight, do you have a couple for me?
Yeah, I do have some. Let's see. Let me just kind of get it. Since you got a lot of scenery, I just kind of brought up my portrait, my wedding stuff. And, this may look a little dark on your screen, but then I kind of intentionally made it a little lower on the darker side. The main thing is I just wanted to make sure that the tension just fell right on her face. When you're doing portrait work, the judges, especially in weddings, they want to see the detail in your face and keep the image sharp. I mean, I know a lot of times you want to maybe put some kind of softening filter across the portrait, but then like as Dennis said, keep it sharp. There are many times I try to apply some kind of softening effect, but I got kicked in the butt and did not merit at all. So that's so important. And also too, within portrait work, make sure your lighting is accurate, or else make sure you got the enough lighting to show detail within the hair. This girl here, well, this bride here has some brunette type of hair, and she has some highlights. So I had to make sure that the details in her hair showed up. And also too, that I wanted to make sure that have some light going across the back of her dress just to show off the design. So I thought, this was kind of where the judges were looking, and also to lens selection, especially with portrait work, your lens. Always try to use, well, not always. In this type of work here, I'm trying to use a longer lens just to keep the depth of field very shallow. So those are my thoughts in working with something like this. So yeah, it gets a little tricky with portrait work.
Dwight, speak to us about your triple matte kind of look there.
I think this came from a Hammon, a Cheri Hammon design, or I try to pick up hints where or little lessons from Cheri, like they have the bevel, and then I had this darker matte here, and then I had a drop shadow on the inside of the inner matte here. So that's what I did to create this here. It may be a little overdone in the matte. I just got to look at the image, and I try to take each image as an individual piece, and then just kind of evaluate it. And as I think about it now, this could have it was over matted, but I thought maybe this darker matte would keep the judge's eye within the presentation here. Of course, direction of light coming from the left is very important. So I try to make the continuity, make sure that when I do my retouching, that the main light is coming from the left side. So that's why by having this mat here, will kind of separate a dark area or dark areas within the environment of this hallway. So those are some of my thoughts there.
Dwight,
Yes,
beautiful image.
Thank you.
I'm trying to perfect my cropping.
Mhm.
And looking at this image on the far left, about her eye level, there's that forward column, and part of the arch. If that were cropped in a little bit on the left, would that be more visually pleasing, or is that an important element for your eye to see?
You know, I kind of played around with this because this image here did have a lot of space around the girl, the bride. And so I took it right at this point here, because if you notice, there's repeating arches on the left side. So there's another arch that continued on the far left. So I decided to take it right here just to use this architectural form right above her head, try to take that. So yeah, I could have cropped in a little even tighter, because as I look at this now, she is not centered. She's not perfectly centered. I could have cropped in a little on the left to make her a little more centered. And you know, dead center cropping sometimes is not good in portrait, but something like this, I think it may work because I'm using the architectural form or design of the archways in the back to make it some kind of flow or design where there's detail on the left and some dead empty space on the right side. So I kind of took a chance on this one here. You know, the problem is I'm the maker, and that's the problem. You fall in love with an image and you know the process. So I have to put these images on the side, and I don't look at them for a day or so, and then I'll jump back in and look and say, okay, what is wrong? I try not to look at it all the time. So when I review my images, it's a fresh, I try to make it so it's fresh in my mind. Like, oh, okay, I see problems. Don't fall in love with your work, because you will not merit if you start seeing things where judges may find which is not important. So like you said, a cropping.
Dwayne, the image is awesome, but I'm curious how you got so much detail off her train.
Oh, the train out here, right? The focus. Well, let's say I would say I kind of cheated in the background by throwing the background slightly out of focus through post editing, and then the detail. Though the detail is there, just sharp. I mean, just my depth of field was pretty broad, so I did have to try to blur out the background a little, just to make sure that, to give the illusion that there's more detail in the train. So little tricks. I think Cheri can even tell you, or even other artists or any other judge can tell you, by putting in textures will kind of give the illusion of sharpness, or there are ways to trick the eye to bring in sharpness and detail, and other ways to blur out the background. So by knowing those little tricks, that's what I try to do.
I certainly wouldn't call it cheating, Dwight.
I shouldn't have used that word.
You're an
No.
artist, and this is what you presented to be viewed. So not cheating.
Right.
You're not a National Geographic documentary photographer. So there you go. That's the difference.
Right. It can get kind of challenging at times. Well, let me just kind of jump over to, let's see. This one here. I'll just show this last one here. I'm just watching time. This one was kind of a tricky one. The bride here, I had to do a lot of retouching on this one here. It's like, as you can tell, the lamp here was just so over bright, so that I had to tone it down and still maintain some of the detail of the glass lens here. And then of course I brought in a little more glow to show. This was a very late afternoon, so it was getting kind of a late afternoon lighting, so it was nice and flat. And of course, I had to do a lot of cleanup on the left side because there was another archway just forming on the right side over here. And I had to take that out. If I had more time and more skill, I guess I would have taken out even this archway here on the left side. I thought that might have been a little distraction. So the best I could do was kind of tone it down. Now, the problem with the bride, her dress, I had to build out her dress here. You can see a repeat pattern. Probably Cheri will see it. You see this wrinkle here and the cut and paste, and I'll use another too. The cut and paste from the shape here. I had to cut her dress out and then build it up on the right side of her because her gown was just too flat and it didn't have a nice bell shape. So I had to build that up. Also too, her flowers were really, really too small. So then I had to mask it out and enlarge the flowers to be a little more prominent in the composition. So this is what I came up with, and just made her a very small subject matter and try to use the architecture behind her as part of the main story. So I had to do some, let's say I had to do a lot of post editing just to get this going.
Well, thank you, Dwight.
Yep.
See, a totally different approach, you know, his matting and everything else. It's just a totally different approach. And you know, Dwight's in his style, and that's everything I think everybody needs to figure out is what their style is going to be. Okay, Miss Cheri, did you have a couple you want to share?
Hey, could I interrupt for a
Oh
sec?
yeah,
Yep.
Go ahead.
I wanted to ask Dwight what the title was of that image.
Oh, let's see. That title was, yeah, it was a goofy one. I think the title was my prince will come in 3 minutes or something like that, because she is texting on her phone. She's texting, and then it looks like I was thinking, oh God, it looks like she's waiting for somebody. And I said, okay, my prince will come in about 3 minutes or something like that. So this is something just goofy. I couldn't think of anything really nice, so I just used that crazy title.
How about Dear John?
It seems to have worked. Thanks for letting me interrupt.
Thank you. Cheri?
Do I share screen?
Yeah, you share
now?
screen. Yeah, share
Okay.
screen.
Let me see. I'll do this one since it was recent. Okay, maybe not. Can you see
It's
it?
coming.
Nope.
Not yet.
Your screen is being paused.
Okay, I'm
79.
Thumbs up.
That's the first time I've ever said 79 in a competition.
Too many
I-
repeating patterns.
I hate 79. I hate the number 79.
I don't give them. I don't
There you
give
go.
them.
You are screen sharing, so do you see it?
Yep,
You see
dance
it
like
now.
nobody's dance. Yep, that's good.
Okay. This one was a loan from this past year. It's in Aspen Grove in Colorado. And I've gotten a lot of questions. Are these really this way, or did I Photoshop them this way? And it's a case of they're really this way. It's in a zone for lots of avalanches and snow slides. And over the course of these aspens' life, they've been run over by avalanches, and then they slowly make their way back up straight towards the sun. And we waited for a couple of hours for the light to be just right. And then finally, and then on this one, I chose a little bit of a darker matte so that the trees themselves really stand out.
So compositioning, what drew you to that image?
The angle of the dancing trees, where the trunks are the coming out of the ground kind of at a diagonal, and then the straight trees behind it.
So it's a juxtaposition of the diagonal trees versus the bent trees. And so you was creating that. Is that what drew you to that area?
Yep.
Great.
Okay, how do I have to stop sharing to
no,
do another one?
Well, if you
Should be
let
able
you
to go
got
to the next one. If
Can you
not,
see
we'll
the
go to
next
plan
one?
B. No, we see the repeating lines again.
got Tim 79 there. Well, you got half of a picture, so it might be 78 and a half.
I was gonna say 79 and a half.
Oh, okay.
So can you see the new one?
No,
No,
Go back to
I'm-
new share, Sherry. At the bottom, it should say
Stop
new share.
Screen share. Share.
There you go.
Okay. This one was from last year. This was a top 10 GIA, so I was pretty excited about it. Multnomah Falls, not a ton of Photoshop stuff, just some cleanup and a little bit of dodging and burning and removing a few bright plants or plants that weren't quite the same color. So just pretty light Photoshop work, and it was accepted as a GIA, which makes me excited because there's hope for just photographic work, straight photographic work without a ton of work done to it to make it there. So really liked that outcome.
Well, maybe Tim could expand on this. Because Tim, we probably see this kind of image once or twice a year, this scene ever.
Yeah,
And I
this is fairly common.
Yeah, but what it goes to show, just because it's a common image, it's how people capture, expose, and then present the image. Don't you agree?
I've seen this, probably 100 times more or more. And this is the first time where I've really seen the extent, the use of, the motion of the water to really create the image. Now, I know some of the judges should have probably said, well, if you just moved over a little bit, then the Paul's background would be, I don't care about that. I mean, I'm looking at the impact, the emotion of it. You go down the 12 elements and it's there. I think it's beautiful.
Well, the thing about this waterfall is you run out of room to get it right in the middle.
Oh, yeah. Especially when everybody got people on both sides of you.
Yeah.
We had to wait for that optimum in about 3 seconds.
Yeah.
But there again, fine art, Matt, beautiful presentation.
And then I'm pretty proud of this one. Y'all see it?
Yes.
Dancing Dahlia.
Yeah. I had a goal. I wanted to get a lone print with a cell phone picture, and I finally did it. And this was it. And I chose a tone for presentation that is in the image, so that the contrast in the middle of the dahlia really jumps out without having to compete with white or another color. And again, just straight photographic with a little bit of retouching. I mean, when you have flowers and plants, you have little bugs and little specks of dirt and stuff like that. So that's this one.
She hold that up there. I mean, whereas Cheri does the white and things, but she talked briefly about the pink, but now she's made the entire presentation part of the image with the tonal changes and blending those tones. So it's just not the dahlia, it's the total presentation is the whole image. And so now that goes into another dimension and the creativity of doing it like that.
Also got
Also,
a
the
fine art
title-
texture.
Yeah, there's a slight texture in the presentation as well. I prefer that as to a flat color. Just gives it a little bit of I don't know, life, I guess is the word I'm looking for. But I came up with the title because this reminded me of a dancer, and the dancers got their arms up in the air, and then they've got the skirt down at the bottom. So that's kind of where I came up with the title.
The matting's very complementary to the texture in the image.
Thank you. That was my idea. So as to keep the focus on the flower itself.
Anything else, Cheri?
Well, I didn't know how much
We
time
got,
we had. Let me see.
actually, these weren't meant for all show and tells, but we're just trying to explain, what judges are looking at and show you a cross section of different kinds of images that I think, and a lot of the Cheri and I stuff is not heavily photoshopped. I mean, 20-30 minutes and we're basically done with our image, working on it.
I do have a question on the last image.
the dancing dahlia. When you say you added texture, when does that become another another element of the image that you then have to show?
I did it, so it's my texture, so I don't have to show it.
I see. But still, with that question, if it wasn't you that did it, would you have had to show it?
You would have to ask Dennis and Tim. Not sure about that since it's the presentation.
You know, if you're going to add an element that does not belong, you know, you didn't create, then yes, you have to show it. You know, and in the photographic open class, if you're in the artist category, you have to show them anyway.
A lot of people should be showing more textures, Tim.
Well, I know.
Yeah, that's one thing we do is we even though we have textures for other people, we really try to use and develop our own texture library. So we have that little step above doing that. Go ahead, Cheri.
Do you see the slot canyon here?
Yes.
Okay. This one's called Passage by Ascension, and then this was an image excellence image. This passed IPC. This is from the Slot Canyon in Page, and being
Arizona.
there is just an amazing experience, and the tones of reds and oranges and yellows are nice and beautiful, but kind of along the same lines of Dennis converting his other images to black and white. This just shows the tones from light to dark and just kind of pulls you into it, whereas the colors are nice, but you're looking at all the colors instead of letting the tones draw you in. And then I chose a darker presentation with a thin kind of just slightly lighter gray stroke so that the crack in this slot canyon really jumps out.
Anybody have any questions for Cheri? Okay. Cheri, any questions from anybody on anything? Go ahead.
I have a quick question for Cheri. Did you add texture to the mat? It's hard to, I'm just on a little
Yes.
iPad. So
It's
there's
very,
texture to
very
the mat?
slight, but just enough to break up the solid flat color.
Okay.
And that's
So
in-
is that what you meant when you said you add texture to it? It wasn't texture to the picture itself?
Right, just the presentation.
Okay.
I
Thanks.
hardly ever add a texture to an image.
Cool. That was a great shot. Really
Yeah,
good.
that's a great catch, Cindy, because, and I think Tim will agree as well, because so oftentimes people put a mat on, and the mat, even though it's black or brown or whatever the color may be, because of the lack of because we're always seeing texture in the image, but they put this smooth image around the whole scene, and then it actually develops its own kind of contrast, and it pulls your eye away in a way. So this is just little tips and techniques that as competitors you need to just be aware of and follow through, and it really helps enhance. Now, you know, you can have all these tricks and all these things, but ultimately you got to have the imagery to carry forth on it, and that's the biggest challenge, is make sure you have the imagery. And the only way you're going to get this kind of imagery is we go out all the time, we practice, we shoot. And so that's the whole thing, is go out and have this kind of image that you can work on and play with.
I'd like to add to this image as well. You notice that the presentation is not solid black. Playing around and trying to decide what kind of presentation I wanted to use, I did start off with a white, and I didn't like it. It was too stark of a contrast. And then I did black. If you have a calibrated monitor, and you can see there's probably just a few tiny little areas where the darks are reading 0. And when you put a 0 black matte or presentation on an image that does not have that, it's going to be an optical illusion, and it's going to make your image look underexposed. It might not be, but the solid black mat is going to make it look like it is. So I lightened up my presentation until I could see some of those darker areas popping through, and not kind of being the eye being fooled as to it that it might be underexposed. So you want to erase any of those things that the judges are going to object to.
She said a key word there, calibrated monitor. And so oftentimes we have people want us to look at their images. They want us to, and they're working on laptops. Now, nothing against laptops, but you don't have, I don't feel you have the full range of the luminosity and the contrast and the density you need on a laptop as you do as a good calibrated monitor in a controlled environment room. So that's really important when you're working on these kind of things. So Michael, you got any, you want us to gain questions in the chats or anything we need to address or anything do?
No questions in the chats. We're good. I appreciate you guys all sharing your work and talking about it. And it's eye-opening even for experienced people. So,
well, you know, I will say this one thing, you know, because I'd say this, and I'm sure Tim and Dwight and others will say this as well. Competition has created me as a photographer, in my belief. I mean, it's helped develop me to become the photographer that I am. And, you know, too many people, their life depends on competition, but my competition depends on my life. I have a life besides it. And I'm just going to quickly address this. I've talked about this before, but Cheri and I have probably enough in our folders for next year, our case for next year. So we're a year ahead of our cases. Now, if we use them, that's a different story because we're shooting new stuff all the time. But we work on stuff and we set time apart, just like we do appointments. We set a time where we're working on competition stuff. We do things. So we are ahead of the game, because if there's anything I detest is that I got my image in 3 minutes before the deadline. I worked on it today at noon. I mean, I just want to shoot those people. I hope nobody's here that way, but
especially those that go lone when they do that. I won't mention Karen Nakamura's name, but she always waits the last minute and always comes up with a lone image. So
I can't do that. It's way too stressful for me.
yeah.
Michael, for a novice, can you explain what the lone image is?
Dennis, you want to go there? It used to be lone, now it's image exit.
yeah, it used to be lone. And I'm sure Tim will remember these days. Back in the day, it started out that the images that were, everything's merited, and anything that is then goes back and is rescored to the images that excel in competition. Those were called loan images, and they actually were in a traveling loan collection that you could schedule, come to your town or art show or whoever and have it. Now they've changed it to image of excellence, which is after all the images have been merited, then they're revisited by a panel of judges that then determine if it exceeds in above and beyond the 12 elements, if it excels in the imagery and the whole presentation. And I don't know if there's anything else, Tim, we could add to that. What else?
Not really. It's just a lot of people didn't understand what the loan meant, because nothing really happens to the exhibit except it's on display at the at Imaging USA. So it just gives it a better identification, image excellence.
Kind of the best of the best. You've got a merit image, and then you got those that excel above a merit, and they're the best of the best. But I do miss the word loan coming out during image comp. I call it print comp.
Mr. Garber goes loan.
And Chris, they do also have another book. If you don't have them, Marathon has what they call the loan books or the excellent imaging books. And they also have a showcase book. And the showcase books are the ones who are exceptional images, but they didn't make loan. And it's just another way. I mean, it helps you to have another visual reference of what people are looking at as judges.
Tim has it.
This is the showcase from a couple years ago. This is probably one of the best references that we can have, because it gives a one book is all of the, used to be loan and now it's the image excellent. All of the prints that accepted into that are in a book. The showcase book is a selection of the next to the best of the best. And lately the books have been gotten so heavy you need a forklift to pick them up. But
1,200 this year.
I know that, I can't believe it.
Do you remember the time when they had when you had loan or entries were mounted 16 by 20s, and when you got a loan, you never get your print back. PPA keeps them, so you never got that loan image returned. So that was a big sacrifice.
That was how the loan collection came about. They would keep those and then they would send them on to wherever they were to go. And now if you enter a print, you still don't get them back.
Well,
Great,
if you have
thank
a
you.
right, if you have the right case, they'll ship it back, I thought.
I'm not, I don't know.
But anyway, it's you know, I've been entering for 45 plus years. Tim's a little longer, but it is, you know, it's not, it is expensive. Back when you make prints, so back in the day, it was $400 or $500 to enter a case. No time you did your prints and mail and ship, and now everybody's saying, oh, you just got to do a digital and file and pay your $95, you're there. Well, you know, you're still entering, but sometimes it's just not quite the sacrifices with prints. And to me, the print is the final destination for your imagery anyway, but we're dealing with PPA. We have to do with what we can, but if we can, we send prints. So
Prints are what you see is what you get.
well, that's a challenge, and we could address this real fast because I hear people all the time. Well, that's not how it looked on my monitor. That's it too. You know what? We don't know what it looks like on your monitor. We have to judge what's in front of us. You know, PPA has their BenQ 32-inch monitors, and we have to judge by what we see there. And if something's different on your monitor, that's you chose to present it to us in that method over a print. So we have to judge the way you sent it to us.
For me, the only way to ensure the judges are going to see your image the way you wanted them to see it is to do a print and to make sure your print is how you want it before you send it.
That was a quick nutshell program.
It went by quick. It was a little over an hour, but that was good. Anybody else got any questions?
No, I gotta go, but I did make one image in showcase. That was years ago, but that was fun.
It's always exciting to go showcase or loan.
Messed the point.
I have a question.
See you guys later.
When
Hey,
you're
thanks.
taking a print, for instance, the landscape, and you have a strong, highly saturated sky that you think might be photoshopped in, how does that affect your judgment of the quality of that print?
Well, you know, I had to look
Take
at the
that
whole.
into account.
I had to look at the whole scene, and I'm probably talking for Dwight and Tim. They can talk too, but if we see a scene and if I visit a scene and I feel like it's oversaturated, that's part of the technical part of the imagery. And if it's been pumped up so high, we're getting blooming or it's too much, that will probably bring the score down or the range in my mind. Tim, do you have input on that?
Well, they'll look for some of the technical things. Sometimes when you oversaturate your sky, you want to look around the border where the sky comes in contact with another part of the scene. And if you see like a haloing or
Well,
something.
I'm thinking of a print that's basically perfect.
Straight out of
Does
camera
the
comes
fact
like that.
It's been
But then
composited.
I don't see a
Affect your
problem
decision.
because that stands out really well. And I mean, the judges are there to take it apart. In the few moments that they've got, they start looking for things. And if they don't see a problem, you know, that's going to be good. You know, they won't knock it down if the sky is if the sky is really good.
I've heard a few times, especially with images that were taken in Colorado on a sunny day. For some reason, the blue sky in Colorado is just pretty intense, and a lot of judges will say something about the sky being too saturated. And again, hopefully someone's on the panel that will recognize the scenery being in Colorado. They'll speak up and say, well, this is Colorado and it's how it is.
Well, it's just not Colorado. It's the western skies, the blue in different places. But the biggest detriment we have is when everybody assumes something's been dropped there, or they assume this, and that's my biggest challenge is that too many of the evaluators are assuming something that's dropped images that's so prevalent now, and then you get people like Cheri and I that don't drop anything in, and it's a straight image. Yeah, it's a challenge. But anyway, Larry, if it's well done, the judge is going to recognize it, and it's going to be rewarded. Anybody else?
Going once.
Oh,
Going
wait,
twice.
I got one. I got a quick one. How do the judges view like collages?
I mean, like multiple images in one scene, in one
composite?
image? A
Yes.
composite or collage?
They're kind of-
Well, it's almost
No, it's not.
similar, no?
Oh,
Okay,
to me, a collage is like they put 2 or 3 pictures as a sequence or a series in a shot, which we see frequently. Then you got the composites where you take multiple images, compose them into one image. So which one are you looking for?
I guess a composite. So I'm bringing in multiple images and making an image. Not just like a collage, like, oh, here's, one picture and another picture, and another picture, and it looks like it was cut out and put on. It's more like, I guess I would call it by your definition, a composite.
So you're taking multiple images to create one art piece is what I'm understanding.
Yes.
Well, and there again, I'm sure, Dwight's the master artist and Tim, but the thing is, you put all those pieces together, they have to work cohesively together as a one art piece with light direction, pieces, perspective, and color and tone, and they all have to work together cohesively. Because if they start and sharpness, if you start getting one piece of soft, one piece not, and in focus, I mean, those can be challenges. There's a lot of great images out there that are composites, but they just it needs to all work together as one piece. Tim?
Well, I agree. I mean, it's a real special talent that somebody can take all these elements to create one image. And I see more not done very well compared to those that are really done exceptionally well. I mean, I have tried and I have yet to succeed in getting a merit on any of them. And it's just the way it is. It's a real special talent to make it look presentable, make it tell a story, and without, well, what happened here? This proportion is a lot to do with it. You get a whole bunch of different elements they try to enlarge them or make them smaller to tell a story, and it never, well, that's not fair. It rarely works.
Yeah, a lot of things to consider. They all have to look like they fit together. So if you have different elements that are photographed with different light directions, different light quality, different lenses, different focal lengths, the whole 9 yards. If you've got one element that's off, it's going to throw the whole thing off. It has to all blend and fit together like a perfect puzzle.
And the cutout has to be precise and not miss a white spot here and a light spot there. You got to really work hard to get everything to look cohesive.
Well, then in that regard, then how do judges look at collages where things aren't, where it is pieced together and it looks like it's pieced together?
Well, if collage, most of the time, and what I'm thinking as a collage, those mostly tell a story, and those are in a storytelling or storyboard or a sequence. And so those are becoming more of a story. So then you have to look at that. But even though people try to overwhelm people with, say, being creative, we still as judges have to look at them as all the technical, the 12 elements, if it's got impact. Is this creative? Oh, wait a minute. Is the center of interest where we need to be? Is the lighting all matching? So even though there are composites, we still have to look at the whole thing as a composite, or we have to still look at it as a story piece and if it's going to work.
This is one of my images of Merited. Actually, it's a blown up version of it, so it's kind of pixelating a little bit, but everything worked out together. The cutouts were okay, which took hours. Probably should have more shadow under his feet down here to plant him, but just putting it all together probably took 30 hours, along with a lot of help from another photographer, giving me advice on how to do it. So it's just a matter of taking your time and making sure everything matches.
Well, keep in mind now, if you must have a collage with multiple images and it doesn't work on one presentation, maybe think about the album, event album. You know, maybe you have strong enough individual images that you could put an album together. I'm not sure, but you know, it's just another option.
Thank you, guys.
Once again, we fall in love with those dang images.
That's why we always have someone that we trust to look at images for us. Because even though we've been doing this for forever, you do get attached to your images, and to have another set of eyes take a look at it, they may notice something that you didn't. And that's very helpful.
Well, we have the advantage of a lot of people where both of us are doing this and entering, and sometimes competition time around the Hammon household gets a little tense sometimes. Just saying. But
And just
yeah.
remember, she's always right.
Well, yeah, but here's just kind of finalizing things up. Ask people of where you want to be, not where you already are, for help.
And make sure it's not somebody that's judging the competition so that they don't have to recuse themselves, because that could be a point in your favor, hopefully.
Yeah, Cheri, I defer a lot of stuff. People send me a lot of stuff, and I know I'm coming up as a judge for districts or IPC or whatever, and I'm deferring stuff to her all the time. And thank goodness she's in the house, and she won't even. Russian spies could come in and interrogate her, and she wouldn't tell me who she's talked to. So anyway, it's nice to have somebody that can help out.
Okay, I'm going to stop the recording now. So